Pick up a Breyers carton and a Häagen-Dazs carton from the same freezer, same section, same store, same word, ice cream on both of them. One has 4 ingredients, the other has 17, and one of them legally cannot be called ice cream. Most frozen desserts on the shelf are not ice cream. The creaminess you get when you eat them in many cases comes from vegetable oil emulsified with carrageenan and gar gum, a stabilizer system derived from seaweed and bean husks, mixed in at precise ratios, then pressure homogenized back into something that looks like cream. It is legally engineered, industrially optimized, and millions of people have been buying it for years without knowing. I read the back of every carton in the freezer aisle. What's on the front is the least honest thing about any of them. The first frozen dessert we are talking about is Breyers. It is the brand most people picture when they picture American ice cream. Breyers was founded in 1866 by William Breyer, a Philadelphia milkman who sold ice cream from a hand-cranked freezer to his neighbors using milk, cream, sugar, and vanilla, 4 ingredients churned in his kitchen. Unilever acquired the brand in 1993. The financial details of that acquisition are not public, but what followed is public. Unilever rationalized production across multiple facilities, standardized ingredient sourcing globally, and reformulated the product line. By 2012, Breyers had quietly changed the label on several of its most popular flavors: natural vanilla, cookies and cream chocolate, from ice cream to frozen dairy dessert. Here is what that label change means. The FDA requires that any product sold as ice cream must contain a minimum of 10% milk fat by weight. When a manufacturer drops below that threshold by substituting vegetable oil or reducing the cream content, the law requires them to change the name. Frozen dairy dessert is not a marketing choice. It is a regulatory designation for a product that does not meet the legal definition of ice cream. The mechanism that replaces the cream is emulsification, a process where fat droplets from non-dairy sources are broken into particles small enough to mimic the mouthfeel of real cream, then stabilized with hydrocolloids. Carrageenan and gar gum are the 2 most common. Carrageenan is extracted from red seaweed. Gar gum comes from gar beans. Both prevent the structure from separating in the carton. The consequence is that the product does not melt the same way. Real ice cream, when it reaches room temperature, collapses into a liquid because it was liquid cream to begin with. Breyers frozen dairy dessert melts into a foam. The fat structure does not fully liquefy because it was never fully liquid. The tell is simple. Leave a scoop on a plate at room temperature for 20 minutes. If it puddles into a smooth, thin liquid, it was real cream. If it holds its shape and turns frothy or foamy at the edges, it was stabilizer set emulsion. Honest limitation: Breyers is inexpensive, consistent, and available in every major grocery chain in the country. For a household that goes through several cartons a month, the price per serving is hard to argue with. The problem is not the price. The problem is that the package still says natural vanilla on the front while the back lists maltodextrin, mono and diglycerides, and tarragon. The word natural has a legal definition under FDA guidelines too. It is doing significant work on that label. And Breyers is not even the worst product on the shelf. Store brand frozen dairy desserts take that same cost reduction strategy and remove the brand equity budget as well. So there is nothing left but the stabilizer system and the price tag. Store brand frozen dairy desserts, great value at Walmart, essential everyday at Jewel Osco, and signature select at Safeway, are not made by the grocers whose name they carry. They are manufactured under contract at third-party facilities that produce for multiple retail chains simultaneously. The formulations are often interchangeable across labels. Here is what that production model produces. Ingredient lists on these products regularly run to 18 or 19 items. Corn syrup replaces a portion of the sucrose to lower cost and improve freeze point depression, the process by which the product stays scoopable at freezer temperature. Polysorbate 80, an emulsifier derived from sorbitol and oleic acid, replaces a portion of the egg yolk function. Artificial flavor rounds out what the reduced dairy cannot provide. The consequence is a product with no founding story, no ingredient accountability, and no single manufacturer to hold to a standard. The label changes with the retailer, the factory does not. The melt test produces the same result: frothy, shape-retaining foam. On store brand products, the foam is often denser because the stabilizer concentration is higher. Honest limitation: these products are the most affordable frozen dessert option in the store. For families managing tight grocery budgets, the price difference between a store brand and a real cream product is not trivial. The limitation does not excuse the labeling. A product with 19 ingredients is not a simpler version of ice cream. It is a different product entirely. Edie's and Dreyer's are the same product with different names: Edie's east of the Rockies and Dreyer's west. The brand was founded in 1928 by Joseph Edie and William Dreyer in Oakland, California. Dreyer pulled apart his wife's knitting needles to cut marshmallows for what would become Rocky Road, one of the first branded ice cream flavors in American history. Nestle acquired a majority stake in 1994 and completed full acquisition in 2002 for approximately $2.4 billion. Post-acquisition, Nestle introduced the slow churned line, a product made using Nestle's proprietary low-fat extrusion technology, which aerates the mix at lower temperatures to reduce the fat content while maintaining volume. Here is what slow churning means industrially. Overrun: the amount of air whipped into ice cream during freezing is the primary lever for reducing ingredient cost per unit. Standard premium ice cream runs at 20 to 30% overrun. Economy products can reach 100% overrun, meaning half the volume in the carton is air. Nestle's slow churn process uses lower temperatures to trap air more efficiently in a reduced fat mix, producing a product that feels denser than its fat content would suggest. The consequence is a product that is marketed on texture and process. The phrase slow churn sounds artisanal, while the front panel never clarifies that the fat has been halved and the volume has been inflated. The tell is simple: check the overrun by weight. A half-gallon carton of real cream ice cream weighs noticeably more than a half-gallon carton of a high overrun product. Lift them at the store. The difference is measurable. Honest limitation: Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream, their full-fat line, is real ice cream by FDA definition and is reasonably priced. The product itself is not the problem. The packaging conflation between the premium and economy lines is: 3 brands, 3 versions of the same strategy, and every single one solve the same problem the same way: reduce the real dairy, add a stabilizer system, and maintain the price point. What does that tell you? It is not negligence, it is not corner cutting, it is portfolio optimization. They optimized for shelf stability, for cost per unit, for margin at volume, for everything except what ice cream was supposed to be: cream frozen. Once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. One brand coming up proves the industry knows exactly what real ice cream is. They also know what sells. Ben & Jerry's was founded in 1978 by Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield in a converted petrol station in Burlington, Vermont. They took a $5 correspondence course in ice cream making from Penn State and opened with a product that used high-fat cream, whole eggs, and outsized mix in ratios that no commercial producer was using at the time. Unilever acquired Ben & Jerry's in 2000 for $326 million, the same parent company that owns Breyers. Ben & Jerry themselves opposed the acquisition and negotiated an independent board to maintain product and social mission standards. Here is what that board preserved. Ben & Jerry's continued to use Fairtrade certified ingredients, maintained its non-GMO sourcing commitments, and did not reformulate the core product to meet Unilever's standard margin targets. The ingredient count on a pint of Cherry Garcia cherries, cherry juice, chocolate chunks, cream, skim milk, liquid sugar, eggs, sugar is 8 items. No carrageenan, no guar gum. The consequence is a product that costs more per pint than most competitors and is still technically owned by the same corporation that produces Breyer's frozen dairy dessert. The two products are made to entirely different specifications under the same parent company. The tell is the same melt test. A scoop of Ben & Jerry's at room temperature pools into a smooth dark liquid, the real cream separating cleanly. Honest limitation: the price per pint is high, typically $5 to $7 retail. For daily consumption, it is not a practical economy product. Real ice cream did not disappear, it just moved to the brands most people walk past. Tillamook was founded in 1909 as the Tillamook County Creamery Association, a farmer-owned cooperative on the Oregon coast. It is still structured that way. There are no external shareholders. The farmers who supply the milk are the owners of the company. What they refuse to do across multiple decades of consolidation pressure in the dairy industry is outsource the cream supply or reformulate the base product for national distribution margins. Here is what cooperative ownership produces in ice cream. The cream comes from the same regional herd that supplies Tillamook's cheese and butter operations. The fat content is consistent because the farmers control it directly. Tillamook's vanilla bean ice cream contains cream, skim milk, sugar, egg yolks, and vanilla bean paste, 5 ingredients. The same 5 ingredients William Breyer was using in 1866. The consequence is a product that melts correctly, costs less than Ben & Jerry's, and is available nationally. It is positioned in most stores between the premium and economy tiers, which means most shoppers walk past it for one of the 2 better-known names on either side. The tell is the same melt test. Same result as Ben & Jerry's, a clean liquid pool, no foam, no retained shape. An honest limitation: regional distribution means some markets carry a reduced SKU range. The full flavor lineup is not available everywhere. My first spoonful of Haagen-Dazs vanilla after a carton of frozen dairy dessert was like hearing a full chord after a single note played on loop. The egg yolks add a fat richness the cream alone does not produce. The skim milk tightens the base without adding stabilizers. The vanilla extract, not flavor extract, provides a back note that synthetic vanilla cannot replicate. Haagen-Dazs was founded in 1960 by Ruben Matus in the Bronx. The name is invented. There is no Danish word Haagen-Dazs, but the product commitment was real. Matus built the brand on the premise that high-quality ice cream required fewer ingredients, not more. He listed them on the carton from the start: cream, skim milk, sugar, egg yolks, vanilla. 5 ingredients. General Mills acquired Haagen-Dazs in 1983 for $70 million. Pillsbury then acquired it with General Mills in 1989. Nestle licenses the brand outside North America and Japan, and General Mills retained North American rights through the spin-off of Dreyer's in 2002. What the ownership changes did not do is alter the 5-ingredient formulation for the core vanilla line. It is the same product Matus launched in 1960. Here is what egg yolk does mechanically in ice cream. The yolk contains lecithin, a natural emulsifier that binds the fat and water phases without synthetic additives. It also contributes phospholipids that create a smoother freeze texture than cream alone. The result is a product that holds its shape in the scoop, not because of gum, but because of natural fat crystal structure. The tell is the same melt test, same plate, 20 minutes. Haagen-Dazs collapses into a thin yellow tinted liquid, the egg yolk visible in the color. No foam, no retention. The opposite result comes from the Breyer's carton sitting on the same shelf. Honest limitation: it is the most expensive option reviewed. A pint runs $5 to $6 at most national retailers. The 5-ingredient product costs more per ounce than a 19-ingredient one. That price difference is the cost of removing the stabilizer system and replacing it with real cream and real eggs. That is what you are paying for. 3 rules for the next trip to the freezer aisle and for every aisle you walk down. If the front panel says frozen dairy dessert instead of ice cream, put it back. That label is not a choice. It is a regulatory marker that the product failed the minimum dairy fat threshold, and every other ingredient on the list is compensating for what got removed. If the ingredient count is more than 8, check the list for carrageenan, guar gum, and mono and diglycerides. Those 3 names indicate a stabilizer and emulsifier system designed to replace the function of real cream. They are not harmful. They are signals that the cream is not doing the work. If the product is sold by a conglomerate that also makes a frozen dairy dessert under a different label, same parent, different brand, different aisle position, the price difference between their economy and premium lines tells you exactly what real dairy costs. They know, they just priced it both ways. What ice cream is in your freezer right now? Pull it out tonight, run the melt test, and drop the result in the comments. I am genuinely curious how many ice cream cartons out there are actually frozen dairy dessert and how many people already knew. If you want this kind of depth and honesty on every product, subscribe. Same depth, same honesty every time. Real ice cream melts into a liquid when it reaches room temperature. Everything else is engineering.